What's up, guys? Hey, it's Eric Gubler with Krris Krohn in the house. Kris, thanks so much for coming and being on the podcast today.
Here's Eric, dude. Glad to be here, man.
You do a lot of podcasts, and you have a really cool one too. And it's funny how we linked up. It's like a friend of a friend. It was actually somebody on my Instagram. I was like, hey, who do you want to have on my next podcast? And somebody's like, dude, it'd be so dope if you had Krris Krohn. And I was like, well, screw it. I'm going to freaking reach out to him. And then it was your PR guy who knew my friend who's like, dude, I'll get him on your podcast. So, and here you are.
Dude, glad to be here, man. Let's rock it out and have a good conversation today.
Yeah. So here's the first thing that I want to ask, like right off the bat. I follow you on social media. I followed you for probably a year.
Okay.
I'm a real estate agent. I invest in real estate, and I've followed you for your tips, tricks, everything. But like, you're the kind of guy that's just you're just always on. Like, you're always just fired up. You're always pushing hard. You're just like, but you're like, you have this confidence. Some people may like attribute it to cockiness, which I think is kind of a good thing. I actually like it if somebody says I'm a little cocky, but not overly cocky. And like but you have like that thing about you where you're just like always on. Where does that come from? Is it from your parents? Did you develop it?
No, dude, it's totally developed. This whole idea of being on, like, some people might call that charisma or that X factor. And for me, like, if we would fast forward 20 years ago, you would have known me as a very, very shy person, pencil-necked, chubby, lacking confidence, scared to put my hand forward to like shake it out, probably like closed throat chakra, not speaking out loud, hunched over. That's probably what you would have seen. And I remember there was this moment in my life. It was actually right before I went to college that I was doing this 2-year Christian mission for my church. And it was in Germany, which was kind of like out of 350 missions on the planet, it was known as like the third hardest. And so that first couple of months, I was just having this really rough go. And I remember sitting myself down at night on the church steps and just being like, man, I suck. And it's like, Kris, the problem with you is you got no charisma. I didn't even really know what the word meant, but I could describe it. It's like, that outgoing, gregarious, shake your hand, lead the conversation, voice inflection, captivating stories. I had none of that. And I dared to have this thought. I'm like, you know what? This is kind of crazy, but why don't we go for it? I'm charismatic. And then spent the next 6 months being the most awkward, clunky human being trying to figure out how to socialize well with other people. And so it's 100% skill. For me, at least, there's nothing in my nature that's got that.
Wow. That's crazy. And by the way, I know what you're meaning with it. I served mine in Florida, so I totally know what you're talking about. And it's like, it's the hardest thing I ever did at that age. Now having kids is probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Especially teenagers.
And I'm not there yet. I got 3 and 1 on the way, and the one's 9 months old. So I haven't gotten any sleep, and now I'm not going to get sleep for another year and a half. But that's been tough. Teenagers I hear is tough too, but that 2 year is foundational for sure. So when you got back from that 2 years, let's say you're 21, right in there, take me from there. Like, how did you get into real estate?
I went to college. My dad, German immigrant, my mom's Irish. My dad's like, son, like, he never got more than like an elementary school education in Germany. He was went to trade school, trained master craftsman. And so with his broken English growing up, he just said, you got to get good grades. You got to go college. That's it. And I believed my dad, and I found myself in college at Brigham Young University taking organic chemistry because I wanted to be a doctor. And then I got a C at the end of the semester. I'm like, my advisor just sat me down and said, there's a decade of science if you want to be a doctor. So if you get a C on a preliminary class, like, this isn't going to work. So I retook the class and I got a C minus. And that's when I had to realize, it's like, dude, parts of academia, 1,000,000% not my thing. I don't get biology. I don't get science. It's too competitive. And I'm not in the top 10, 20%. This doesn't come natural to me. And my wife and I, kind of coming from a conservative background, I got married really young. We've been married for 21 years. And I remember my wife just read me right. She said, you're the breadwinner. You're going to make the money. I do not want a career. I'm going to raise babies. I'll do other things. I'm not doing that. And I remember feeling kind of jaded, sucks that I'm part of some generation where I'm expected to work 40 to 60 hours a week for 40 years. And at the time I had a telemarketing job, putting myself through college. So I'm like, there's probably no career I could enjoy. I know I'm not going to be a doctor. And when I started looking at the other career options, I'm like, 50 grand a year, 80 grand a year, 100 grand a year. And I basically said, okay, if this is my life and if it's all on me to figure out the game of money, I know this one thing: it's not found in college. And that's when I just opened myself up to a whole new world. And within like months.
Can you say that again? Can you say that again? That part about college? Just say that one more time. I love that.
I don't remember what I said. What did I say?
If it's something about like if I'm gonna make money, it's not in college.
Yeah, if I'm going to make money, I'm not going to find it in college. Like college is career training. College is how to make money for somebody else. Career training is how to keep your head above water. It's how to live check to check. It's how to get ahead maybe a little bit. That's what college is.
So I mean, everybody struggles with this one. I hear people all the time ask me, "Hey, how do you become an entrepreneur? How do you get started and stuff?" And it's like, if you're asking that question, it maybe isn't right for you. Like, just do it, right? But what's your take on that? Like, how do you tell somebody or teach somebody how to become an entrepreneur or do something that you've done?
I think it's 100% a skill, just like charisma, that you have to develop. It's one of those things you have to suck at before you can get good at it. And I think like the easiest foray into entrepreneurship is just a side hustle. It's like, go see if you can sell 100 lawns over 3 neighborhoods to say yes, and then hand off the business to a teenager to mow the lawns for you, right? Like go do pest control door to door a little bit. Go figure out something you can buy for cheap and then go and sell, just so you learn some hustle and some grind and face a million rejections. I think that's healthy. I think that's like, do some kind of side hustle, even if all it does is make you, $40,000, $50,000 a year compared to a job. That's an excellent way to kind of get your feet wet. I know like way more intelligent ways of doing it today, shortcuts, ways of making it faster, but I would encourage everyone to have some like entrepreneurship in the background. Gen Z that's coming up, 94% of them are like, not going to college. I want freedom. I want flexibility. I want to be my own boss. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, whoa, we have never had a generation
No.
so bullish on entrepreneurship.
I wonder if it, go ahead.
They're going to be the generation that puts basically an end and puts the nail in the coffin on college, that makes college way less popular.
Which is going to be so crazy if all this brick and mortar is just like useless, which I think would be awesome. But in some ways, I wonder, is it, was it that we grew up, like our parents grew up underneath the Depression babies, right? So you have like my grandparents grew up in the Depression, and then they taught their kids, hey, college is the #1 safety net.
Yeah.
And so go college. They pushed it so hard. My parents pushed that same thing, but then I felt like I was a pioneer in my family. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm going against the grain.
Yep.
But then it's like the next step, they're like, well, there's all these people that have pioneered it, and they're starting to see it, and they don't feel that effect of the Depression. You think there's any truth to that?
Well, I had a really weird experience when I was in college, because I got this telemarketing job. I worked full time, and I got to basically outbound interview all of these people that were in a very similar avatar demographic. These people had been to college 30 years earlier. They got degrees. They got good paying jobs. They were kind of Dave Ramsey-ish. They were 401kers, IRAers, house pair offerers. And after interviewing thousands of them, I was like, I could statistically summarize where they were at by 55 years old. They, on average, had maybe $200,000-$300,000 in 401ks and IRAs at best, and their houses were on average maybe half paid off. And I was like, these people are within 10 years of retirement, within 10 years, and all they have is $200,000, $300,000. Like, can't anyone just see how far off base they are? And they were calling me in panic of almost, it's like the wool had been pulled over their eyes, and they finally were waking up and realizing, hey, I'm kind of 30 years into my 40-year thing, and I only have 10% saved of what I thought I should. And I was like, I don't think it's going to work. I'm like, no, duh. Like, you should have figured that out a long time ago. So as a 21-year-old, I basically, that's when I realized, okay, college is for keeping your head above water. That's it. That's what a job is, by the way. And that's when I found 3 people that had each made over $10 million in real estate. One of them slammed the door on my face after I knocked on their door at 11 p.m. at night and tried to beg them to be my mentor. The other 2 let me in, and I did my first deals with them. And by the time I graduated college, I had a small portfolio, right? It was worth a couple $1,000,000. I had 25 homes, and they're paying me $12,000 a month. So when I graduated college, I quit my college job, and I never needed to work ever again.
That's insane. 25 properties by the time you got out of college.
Yes.
And when you got out of college, did you graduate with a degree?
I did. My mother-in-law was going to kill me if I didn't get my degree. So I chose the easiest degree on the planet. It's like marriage, family, human development. It's like a pre-counselor degree. Frankly, it's my wife's degree. And I just literally got the same degree so I could spend time with her, because I was like, my college degree ain't going to matter. And I never see this woman. And since I work full-time and I'm doing my business full-time, at least I can see her in college.
That's awesome, man. So then college, and then now you have 25 properties that you could leverage or pull out a HELOC, or cash out refi and leverage to get other properties. Where are you at now? Like, how have you grown from that 25 to where you're at now? If you don't mind sharing, you said at the beginning, I can ask you anything. So
I've transacted now over 6,500 homes. My portfolio, I'm sitting right around 1,000 homes myself, 1,000 doors on single family, transacted about $2 billion worth in real estate. But I got to tell you, my biggest regret is I hung my hat too hard on real estate too. Like what I've done in business and private equity, like real estate, that's a great way to, like, at the pace I'm going, I'll be a billionaire in real estate eventually, but there are way faster ways. And that's called private equity. That's called 90% of millionaires make their money in real estate and 100% of billionaires make their money in private equity. And so the last 5-6 years, I've really reshuffled a lot of my financial strategies and thinking and broadened my horizons to, owning tech companies, fintech, and entering into spaces where you have higher multiples, fat, juicy exits. And frankly, I kind of feel like I got lazy and just kept building this team that just did all this real estate for me. And it's been so good to me. Like, I love it, but so one-dimensional at the same time.
yeah. And you're just, well, I love that because it's like, and for me, I feel like fulfillment is not the money and sitting in the bank or having it come in. It's the fulfillment is going and becoming better or being the best version of yourself or chasing, like building something, right? Yes. Yeah. And so it's cool to hear that you're in a bunch of different things. I'm curious if it's laced with, so you have your own mastermind, right? You run it. It's awesome. You have an event coming up. Maybe plug that real quick.
Yeah. So in November, Unleash Your Financial Destiny. It's a 4-day event. And actually anyone listening here is welcome to a free $1,500 ticket just because I love you, Eric. People can go to freewealthgift.com/Eric. And the event, it's a 4-day full immersive event. It is one part, all the strategies of how you become a billionaire. And then second part, just some of the wildest mindset exercises that will just wreck you in one of the most beautiful ways, put you so far outside of your comfort zone and cause you to really rethink your fears, your limiting beliefs, the things that get in your way. And so it's designed to be, it's the event that people go to when they're really ready to financially 10X their life.
Everybody listening to this, if you go to this thing, like, let me know because I plan on being there if I can make it. I do have, my wife's having a baby in November. So when Jeff asked me to go, I said, I have to make sure that she's not literally delivering.
Likely excuse.
It's a pretty good one. So
it's pretty good. Is this number 3?
This is 4.
Number 4. Oh,
this is 4. We're due in November. So we'll see what happens. But
all right.
As long, she's always early. So if we have it in October, it's like, I'm free game. And then I'll be there. But anyway, masterminds in general, when I hear you speak about, hey, I could do something else, or you're thinking big. You're a big thinker, huge thinker. Like I listen to some of the things that you say, and I try to think big too. But I'm just like, whew, yeah, I could think bigger. How important are masterminds for people that are listening to this? What people are listening to this are entrepreneurs. They're interested in real estate. They want self-development, but maybe they haven't made it yet. One, I think there's 2 questions. How do you start thinking bigger? And then 2, how important are masterminds?
Yeah, I'll do it in the reverse order because masterminds, I remember when I dropped $25,000 for my first mastermind, I tried to do everything I could to get in for free because I was freaking cheap. But I remember when I finally paid that price, that mastermind made me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, what a fluke. I just picked a good one. I get into the next mastermind, drop 25,000. That's so many times are 25, 35 grand. And this time it happened again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is weird. When I get in these masterminds, something weird happens and then I make a ton of more money than I normally do. Years ago, I had a chance to get into one of the more expensive masterminds, Tony Robbins. It was 100 grand to join his. And I'm like, oh, 100 grand? Like, I can't, like, can I really monetize that? Dude, I made almost $1 million my first year by being in that mastermind. But here's the crazy part. It wasn't the deals that I did with people in the mastermind. What I love about masterminds, and this is what people don't get, you write the check because let's say with your mastermind, Eric, they write the check and they think they're doing it to get into your airspace. And there's so much value that you have for them. Yes, it's brilliant. But the thing that almost shocks everyone always is that it's networking with like-minded individuals that are thinking big, that inspire you to show up different in your business. And so I look at the money that I've made from people in masterminds versus the amount of money that I've made by just allowing the motivation to push me to new heights. Second, hands down. And so I'm a huge fan of masterminds. I am in so many different masterminds and I have several of my own. And I love them because I love, think of it like a formula. you write a check that's uncomfortable. And by the way, when I did Tony's, I went on afterwards and did a $350K mastermind because I'm like, I'm going to monetize. I know if I write a $350,000 check, I'm going to make millions of dollars because I've learned the math. So like the formula is find a mastermind that really resonates, someone you want to learn from, the group, write the check, get over the fear, and then set the intention that you are going to multiply that money that year manyfold. And every time I do. And then I just love the people that I get to know and hang out with.
That is so good. That is so good. I hope people hear that because I see, and we're running a mastermind in September. It's the 5th through the 7th. It's up at Homestead Ranch in Southern Utah. Awesome. And it's very hands-on. It's very physical. Like we're going to put them through hell physically, mentally, emotionally.
Invite me, bro. That sounds like my kind of home.
Dude, come speak. If you want to come speak, I'll for sure get you on the stage.
Let's talk.
Seriously. We'd love to have you, but it's an awesome mastermind. This is the first time we're having women come. It's usually a men's mastermind, but it's $2,000. It's $2,000 for 3 days.
That's crazy. You're stupid. Why are you charging so little for something?
It's so cheap. It's so cheap. But here's what happens. Oh yeah, I want it. I want to go. Dude, I know this is right for me. I'm ready for the next step. I'm pumped. I'm going to be there. And then they don't pay. Why don't they pay? It's like everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to get better, but they're not willing to, like that fear that you said, like get over the fear, write the check, send it. I know what that feels like too. Well, the first one that I ever signed up with was $30,000 cash. Just here's.
I'm going to hijack your podcast and just tell you, you got to raise your prices, bro. You got to raise your prices. No, that's cool. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, no, it's good because you think bigger, and that's why another reason why I'm pumped to be on the call with you and connect with you and stay in touch with you to be able to just learn from you.
But can I just say the weirdest thing happened? I remember when I started my first company, 2007, I had put this real estate service together and it was so valuable. And I had only done it like on the side with like 50 people. And I released it to the public for $1,000. And in a room of 80 people, one person bought. And I was so deflated. I had never public spoken to a group. I was so nervous. I was wearing a suit. I looked like I was 14 years old. The whole experience was just so bizarre. And then 3 weeks later, I did my next one and I raised I quadrupled my prices. And then a whole bunch of people bought. And I started figuring out that sometimes people have a hard time valuing something if it doesn't feel valuable enough in the price tag. And so over the years, I've had fun testing where it's like, oh, I increased my price and sales conversions increase. I'm like, that's weird. I just made more money by raising the price. You always think counterintuitively that the opposite's going to happen. Not true.
That's super interesting. Yeah. And the other thing that it does is a barrier to entry. So you're the people that come there, I think is some part of the value, the people that you rub shoulders with. Yep. And so if they're paying $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 or whatever to be there, you know that they're committed. Like tomorrow I'm going to this, what's today? Tuesday. No. Yeah, we're Tuesday. Wednesday. Yep. So I'm leaving to go up north in northern Utah, and I'm going to go do with a buddy of mine, Mitch Matthews. We're going to go with 10 other guys, entrepreneurs from all over the country. We're going to go do this hike, the Everest. I don't know if you've heard of it. You hike the elevation in like 24-hour period of Mount Everest.
Wow.
And so he's like, dude, you need to come to this thing. And I'm like, what is it? It sounds terrible, but like I'm interested because I like to do terrible things. Yes. And he's like, well, it's $5,000. I'm like, what? I'm paying $5,000 to go through hell? Like, what are you talking about? Like, they should pay me or like it should be free, bro. Like, we're on a freaking mountain. Why do I need to pay $5,000? And then it like instantly kicked in. Yeah. And I was like, no. I'm in because if I'm paying $5,000 to be there to go hike a mountain, that means everyone around me also paid $5,000 and they want to be there.
Yeah. 100%. You understand this principle so well. Tony Robbins taught me when I was in his mastermind. I've had 32 mentors. Tony was my 26th. And when I was a Lion, I was 2 years in his organization. I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm at his house and he teaches this one principle. He says, you are one person away from lifetimes of income. And when I started getting heavy into private equity, I put together an investors club mastermind. It's like $75,000. And it's all Krris Krohn's private deals. So when I'm not doing real estate, where am I stashing my cash? And when I stash my cash, I get discounts on equity. I will sit on the board. I'll throw my assets and resources at that company. And so what I do is I pick these asymmetric companies that have huge private equity like upside. I'm talking about like this last year, I launched several companies or acquired several companies that definitely have billion or multi-billion dollar potential. And my game is iteration, which is you don't put all your eggs in one basket. I'm not betting on one company. every year I launch at least a half a dozen billion-dollar plus potential companies. And I know that the majority, more than half of them, are not going to produce what I want them to. But because I iterate, I also don't need them to. And so last year, I look at some of those companies, and they were people that I met on my private jet, people like you in the way that we're connecting, and you have a spark, you connect, and you start realizing, wow, if I take this resource and we put them together, let's size how big that thing could be. I did a deal with Carlos Reyes called Property, that is a mix between wholesaling and buy and hold. And we just launched on a weekend, a little private, a little pilot program, $2 million like that. We'll do 10 million before the end of this year. And for every million we collect $1 million in perpetuity, period. So this, over the next 3 years, this is a $100 million collection. And then it's going to be paying out $100 million a year in subscription model. Like it's this huge thing, but I'm like, how did that happen? Well, the dude out, Carlos called me up. He's like, I heard you speak at that one thing. It was so fire. Will you speak at my event? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, what can I give you in exchange? And I said, I'm going to Ukraine in 3 weeks. And I'm putting up a bunch of money, and I'm trying to raise another $500,000 to bring medical supplies to the people. And he said, brother, speak on my stage and then go ahead and pitch. And we raised like $400,000. So he and I, just from doing good together, ended up forming a relationship that led to a company. And that happened several times to me last year. And that's already started happening to me again this year. So this idea that you're one person away from lifetimes of income is the game of you got to network. Where do you network? By doing Everest, by joining a mastermind, by paying to get in the room. Very few people are willing to do that. And that is what basically sets you apart to be with the rest of those people like you're talking about.
Yes. So good, dude. So good. Love that. Thanks for sharing that. So switching gears just a little bit, because you have a family. So how many kids do you have?
Yeah, 4 kids. Oldest is 17, youngest is 12.
Holy cow. So you just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, we just pumped them out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And your wife, where's she from?
So my wife's from Washington, D.C. I'm from Seattle, and Brigham Young University, Utah is what brought us together. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So tell me about your wife a little bit. Is she, because I get this a lot too, like, hey, like, well, what if my wife's not on board, and like, what if I am, or how does your dynamic work? What's she like?
So, the reality is opposites attract for a reason. I am a super creative, outgoing person, and my wife is really, she's the most grounded and emotionally intelligent person I've ever met. She also has like infinite storehouses of love. She's so good for me because I've got all this crazy expanding energy, and I'm creating like a beast, and I just come home a wreck, and then my wife just puts me back together. So she is seriously just my perfect companion and absolute best friend. Very talented human being. She's actually going back to school right now to become a therapist because she's so good at loving people, helping people. The woman's rich. I'm like, honey, you don't need to do this. She said, Kris, this is calling. This is higher life calling. I get to do this because I have people that I get to serve and love. I'm like, you have my 100% support, babe. She's an amazing mother of our 4 kids. We got 2 boys, 2 girls. Just got back from Japan, spent 2.5 weeks. My kids are all private educated, as in we hire our own teachers and bring them in our home and have our own school units. So, that means that we travel as a family together. We learn and grow together as a family together. And my wife's put most of that together as well.
We're similar. I grew up homeschooled as a kid. My mom was a pioneer in that realm, and it was not when homeschooling was cool. Homeschooling was taboo back then, and
the pandemic finally made it a little cool.
yeah, exactly. And so now it's like, oh yeah, that's fine. Like nobody judges now, but we do the same thing with our kids. We put them in private, or we try and teach them here at home. But I love that, and the reason I asked that question, Kris, I don't want somebody to take that and be like, oh, this is the game plan. So if I want to be able to be successful like Kris, I need to marry a girl like this, and I need to act like Kris. No, that's not what I'm saying, and that's not why I asked the question. I think the reason I asked the question is, hey, if you find yourself like Kris and you find yourself like your wife, then your wife's like his wife, then great. Maybe you can learn something from him. But here's my point. I've heard so many stories of people that want to get good at making money or get into business or be an entrepreneur, and they always like blame their spouse. I literally just had somebody call me yesterday. Yes. And like, oh, I want to go and do something big, but my spouse, they won't help me. They won't do this. And it's all this soundtrack that they play in their mind, this story that they make up, and they just need to get over their story and go make it happen, because they can create whatever life they want, right? But speak to that a little bit. What's your take on that?
Yeah, Eric, I always just ask, like, who's the primary, who's the secondary? In raising our children, my wife is often the primary and I'm the secondary. In money making, I'm the primary. She's not even the secondary. Meaning there's no such thing as I'm the leader and she's not, or she's the leader and I'm not. In across the board in everything, we take turns who's the leader. And so when it comes to something like making money, if you're on first, if you're the primary, then you are doing your spouse a disservice by letting them get in their way. And I hate giving this advice, but once in a while I'll see that dynamic and I'll turn to the negative-minded spouse and I just ask, are you the primary? No, I'm the secondary. I said, then you better get on board with the primary. Because right now you're hitting the brakes and they're supposed to hit the gas. You can balance this individual, you can help this person, and then I'll turn to the other one that's the primary and say, right now you got to step up your game. Because right now you're allowing the secondary to be the leader when you know that they're not the leader, which means you're disappointing them and you're going to lose their respect if you listen to them. Sometimes you have to know when to love someone enough to completely ignore them, go against them, or do in your heart what you know you're supposed to do.
Love that, dude. So good. So good. I hope everybody listening to that too. There's so many gems, just like boom, 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 boom. And I knew it would be with you because honestly, you're just like, again, like you have that turn on button all the time. But I love that about family because I've said this analogy before, but it's like I look at the family as like balls that I'm juggling, and business is a rubber ball. My fitness is a rubber ball. All these, fitness, technically my faith, my finances, whatever, all the F's that they talk about, they're all rubber balls. When you talk about the family F, to me, that's a glass ball. Yeah. Like you don't want to drop that one because the other balls, if they're rubber, what do? They bounce back. Like you can always get your fitness back. You can always get your business back. But the glass ones, like that's the one that I don't want to drop. And it can be very tempting as an entrepreneur, but it's funny because it's like this psychotic thing of like, hey, I'm going to make money to support my family because I want them to know that I love them. But then we forget about our family sometimes in the process.
The biggest mistake that entrepreneurs make is that they don't have standards. So as the entrepreneur, you say yes to everything and you don't know what you're saying yes to. I say yes to this activity because it makes me $5,000 an hour. I say yes to that activity because it makes me $1,000 an hour. But I also say yes to this activity that makes me $20 an hour. And what I'm trying to do is fill up my time so I can feel good. When I meet with most entrepreneurs, what I'll do is I'll actually say, make a list of all the core activities that you have. There's usually like 10. And I say, show me how many hours you spend on them. And then what I'll do is I'll ask where the money comes from. What is the dollar per hour on the activity? And almost every freaking time, there's 2 out of the 10 activities that make 90% of the money. The other 8 activities take up 80 to 90% of the time. And what I tell them, keep these 2, ditch the rest, reclaim your time. And then they say, but what am I supposed to do with my time? I say, double your standards. Take your highest paying opportunity, declare the intention that you will now for you only say yes to what pays you double, and everything else you say no or you delegate. And if you do this, you'll have time and you'll always be making more money. You do that, and then all of a sudden you're not that entrepreneur that's dropping your family glass ball. I do think, though, on the other hand, as human beings, like we're never going to be satisfied, Eric, until we're balanced. And society tells us that balance isn't possible. And I'm sorry, that's not true. It is possible if you're organized and if you put a system in place to say, hey, I can hit all 4 of these areas. I can work on my finances and grow them. And I just shared with everyone a hack, especially entrepreneurs, on how you can reclaim more than half of your time. Well, what are you supposed to do with that? Put it in your fitness, put it in your family, and then put it in your spirituality, put it in your faith. And there's a way for you. Think about what happens to a person's confidence or their personal belief in themselves when they're ignoring one of those 4 areas. So you find someone that's making a lot of money and they're fat. And it's just like, how are you feeling about your fitness? And it's like, you can't look in the mirror and like what you see because you know that you're neglecting yourself and you're not taking care of yourself. Tell me that you love yourself and I don't believe you because I look at what you're doing to your body. So you have to find a way. I think that all 4 balls need to be juggled, and most people just focus on one of them and they're ignoring the other ones. They don't get it. They're never going to feel satisfied until they can time block to do justice by all of them. No, but the good news is we got technology, we've got AI, like we have all sorts of innovation on our side that is making balance easier than ever before. Anyone that just feels busy, like that's the bad word that I'm never allowed to say. I don't allow anyone in my ecosystem to say that they're busy because all that means is that they're overcommitted to the wrong things. It's like there's more than enough time for all of the right things. There's more than enough time for all the inspired things. You just have to have standard.
So here's my question. We're talking about standards and we're talking about like, hey, set the standard, right? You set your standards, set your dollar per hour worth. But doesn't life happen where no matter what, something's going to creep in? Something's going to try and attack that 20% that makes you 100% of your money. Something's going to try and attack your schedule. What do you do then? Like, how do you make sure that you're thwarting off? Because life changes. We're human. We evolve. Things evolve. Life evolves. How do we protect that time?
I think honestly, if you have a strong standard, it's never going to happen. I get up at 4 a.m. I have a 5-hour routine that I do Monday through Friday. This is how I cultivate power. It's 20 minutes on my brain, double speed. So I'm taking in 40 minutes from a book. It's meditating with my wife on the treadmill for 30 minutes. So I'm basically hitting my cardio and a really powerful meditation. Then I'm spending an hour in the gym working out with a couple of buddies and friends. Then I have an hour with my wife and I have an hour with my kids. By the time 9 a.m. rolls around, I have fed my mind, I have fed my heart, I have fed my soul, I have fed my muscles and body, I have fed my core relationships. It's only 9 a.m. I don't have to worry about getting to 9 p.m. and wondering, did I mess it up? Did I leave something important off the table? No. If it was important, it was done by 9, prioritized. Then I got the whole rest of the day, to fill.
I love that, dude. I love that. It's, and this is another thing that you learn in masterminds. I got to go back there. Your standards, right? One of the things we say in ours all the time is uphold the standard. Like, that's so important that you uphold the standard.
Yeah.
And there's a recipe to success. Like, what Kris is saying right now is the recipe. No matter, like, every successful person that I've ever met or been around, or just anyone, they have these standards. And maybe I'll say, okay, there might be some albatrosses out there that don't do these things and they make a lot of money, but I don't freaking want their life.
Yeah.
I don't want their life.
Yeah.
They're miserable because they don't have everything. They don't have all of those F's in place.
Yeah.
Right? They may have money, but do they have friends? Do they have their family around them? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it. But dude, last question, because I know you got a live coming up. You're just on podcast all day today, right?
Today is a very weird, like 9 to 5 podcast day. Yes.
That's cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on this one, and I'm going to let you go here pretty soon, but I want to ask you one more question. If somebody's trying to get into real estate and they're in today's world,
yeah,
and they don't have a lot of money,
yep,
and they're young, but they have hustle and they have drive, what do they do?
So I feel like there are 2 games in real estate that everyone should play, and they should ignore the rest. And if you look at why 2, one of them is for active income and one of them is for passive income. And so I might be rotten at chemistry, but I'm really quite fantastic at statistics. And when I got my first mentors, I queried them and I asked, which strategy is best in real estate? And they couldn't give me an answer. They said, it's too subjective. This one makes the most money, but then it's the highest risk. So I said, okay, well, there's 30 major known strategies. I want to create a thesis on the strategy that's going to be best for me. And they said, well, then you got to figure out your bias. So I did, and I created an algorithm. And I basically said, okay, I'm going to compare all strategies against each other based on the following 6 criteria. Which strategy takes the least time, the least effort, the least risk, makes the most money, works in up and down markets, and provides a benefit to society? I said, that's my bias. And I basically said, I want 2 answers, one for active income, one for passive. And what came out of that system was 2 things. For active income, the game is wholesaling. Wholesaling, there's no capital at risk. I can show anyone here how to find deeply discounted deals. Here's a house worth $400,000 that you can get under contract for $280,000. You can flip it to this investor for $30,000, $40,000 assignment fee. You're going to get paid in the next 10 days. And that was $40,000 that you earned in 3 hours, right? So that's for helping someone get to the point where they're making $500,000 to $1 million a year wholesaling. And what I love about it is that it's hyper systematizable. If I can't systematize it, I usually won't touch it. Then what came out for the passive play was a short-term buy and hold on single-family homes bought below the median in the top markets in the U.S. And that's what I've done thousands of times. So even though there's 324 markets in the United States, there's only 5 that I play in because that's where I get my highest ROI. And so on the one hand, every day I'm buying a home for the passive play that is just building massive, massive net worth on the balance sheet. And then I've got my entire wholesaling business. It's making millions and millions and millions of dollars. Put those 2 together, and the cool thing is you start with the wholesaling, doesn't take any money, doesn't take any credit, it takes very little skill. And then what do you do with your winnings? Then you put some of them into the buy and hold game. Now you're going to wake up in 20 years to a portfolio hopefully of $10, $20 million and say, I made it. but along the way, you've been able to enjoy and afford every lifestyle that you wanted. So anyone that wants to learn about that can go to freewealthgift.com/Eric. And I'm going to teach them that. If you go to my social media and hit up my bio, my birthday's coming up September 28th, and I'm hosting a party for 30,000 people, and I'm going to teach them these 2 strategies for fun and for free. So there's ways to get that information.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool. Well, dude, thanks so much for the value today. Thanks for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you. Would love to meet you in person one day. Hopefully it's at your event, or I'll hit you up about coming and speaking at ours September. Dude, I'm telling you, it's September 5th through the 7th. If you want to fly in on your private jet, come speak a day, fly back home. I got your stage.
Brother, let's connect for sure. Come out to one of my events. Let's do another podcast again. And
if you're ever in St. George, dude, come live. Come be in the studio, dude.
Dude, I love it. Is that where you're out of?
Yeah, I'm in St. George.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Do you go to St. George?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
St. George in Washington. So I grew up in Santa Clara. I live in Washington right now. So yeah, if you're ever in town, dude, let's link up. I'll shoot you a DM on your Instagram. Well, it might go to Jeff. I don't know.
No, go to Jeff. I don't manage any of my social.
I'll tell Jeff, hey, Krris Krohn just told me. Kris said that I could have his personal cell phone number. Can you give it to me? And he'll be like, yeah. All right, cool. Dude, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for being on here. Hey guys, if you felt like you got value from this podcast today, please write a review, like it, share it, give us 5 stars, get this out there to your people. Like, I felt like there were so many gems here for people that want to become an entrepreneur, get involved in real estate, and become the best version of themselves. So share it on social media, your Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Appreciate you guys listening this far. Kris, thanks again for being here. You're a stud. Talk to you guys soon.